So for the purpose of this tutorial, I'm actually going to rename my entire Blender folder, and I'm just going to put a big A at the end, which will rename it, and that means that the next time I open Blender, it's going to open up as if it never has been opened before. So we'll just snap our window into place, and we'll choose left mouse, search, next, and we're ready to go. I'm going to press F4 and bring up our preferences. And from here we'll begin just configuring Blender. So as always, I like to go with deep gray at this time. And then I'll go under 3D view and just make my face dot size bigger as well as my vertex size. And then in theme space, we could actually play with the idea of having a vignette in the 3D view. And we could even, darken it to see what it looks like. In fact, we want to play with the one on the outside and get it to really be ever so subtle, really nothing dominant showing here. And then with the graph editor, I always like to see my handles or my nodes be a little bit shorter. So instead of having all the bendiness to it, I like to lower my noodle curving. Half of these settings I'm going through aren't necessary for your own particular setup, but I'm just showing you how I would set up Blender just myself. With autosave, we'll set that to 2 minutes, and everything else is actually fine. With recent files, I like to keep about 30 of them in memory. We'll set ourselves to use our optics. However, I'm not going to be using cycles. We can go ahead and search for cursor and find set 3D cursor, and we can set this to be geometry. And let's also search for local, and we just want to go under local and just uncheck frame selected in these so that whenever we go in local mode, it doesn't do a viewport jump. We also want to turn off auto perspective under navigation because it'll cause us annoyances by jumping in and out inorganically. Let's see, as far as everything else goes, everything else is pretty much good to go. So now we can go under add-ons, and I always like to enable curve tools. Also like to enable edit mesh tools. So I just go in and search for curve and enable curve tools, and then enable edit mesh tools. And at this point we can now install the add-ons. So to install, I'm just going to click install, and then we'll just go to our folder, and we're just going to choose Mercury. And first we'll install HardOps, but it's not required, of course. You can just use boxcutter. However, I do like to have HardOps as my right hand and boxcutter as my left. So let's go to install, and now we'll install boxcutter. And so once these are enabled, you'll see their icons over here on the T panel, and that should also let you know that you're good to go. We'll just save our press, close this window, and at this point we can actually press Ctrl I, select the inverse, and delete that because we just don't need it. And when it comes to setting up my default scene, I like to press Alt V and just set my viewport to EVHQ and start boxcutter. And then from there I can go to my defaults and choose to save my startup file. And this will be a nice startup file for me to just jump in and quickly get to work. In fact, if I wanted to maximize even more, I could press I believe Control Spacebar to maximize that even more and have a maximum full view whenever I start Blender. However, that's a little too much, too fast for you guys. So instead we'll start at frame 1, and we'll go to the top and choose Save Startup File. And since I have dual monitors, more than likely it's not going to work the way you think it would, where it loaded exactly where I closed it. So in order to actually get it to work with an upper monitor, I like to lower the window down and just save my startup file, and then from there we can just close Blender. And then if I open it again, it at least opens on the correct monitor, and then I can just snap it into place and get to work. So with that, we've now discussed the installation, and with boxcutter started, all we have to do is just click and drag, and we can just begin drawing boxes. And that's really as easy as it is to get started with boxcutter. Before I move on to the next section, another thing I also like to do with my presets as far as my default scene is we'll press Ctrl N and we'll make a new file, and I'm just going to press F4, and we're going to jump in our preferences. And from here we're just going to go back to our theme, And what I like to always do is change the color of my selected object in the 3D view to just be something a little more relaxed. So usually I'll change it to something like light blue or something. And then from there, that will be my configuration the next time that I load Blender.